The Altherian royal flagship floated above the twin moons of Yalara, its silver hull shining like a jewel in the endless dark. Inside, the vast throne chamber glittered with polished crystal columns and banners of deep blue silk that swayed with the soft pulse of the ship's gravity systems. Alien nobles in elegant robes gathered in careful silence, each movement refined, each word measured. It was not an ordinary day. For the first time in Altherian history, a human was present as an honored envoy. Captain Aaron Blake, dressed in a simple Earth military uniform, walked slowly across the floor of polished stone, his boots echoing in the grand chamber. His dark hair was neatly combed, and though he was calm on the surface, he could feel dozens of alien eyes studying him like a rare specimen. The Altherians were tall and graceful, their features sharp as though carved by art itself. Their skin shimmered faintly under the chamber lights, marked with swirling royal tattoos that signified rank and heritage. To them, humans were strange creatures, short-lived, emotional, and reckless. Many whispered that humanity did not belong at the high table of galactic powers. At the center of the chamber sat Princess Selira, heir to the Altherian throne. She was young by her people's standards, barely 200 years old, yet already a symbol of strength. Her robe was deep violet, trimmed with silver, and her long hair shimmered like strands of starlight. She spoke little, her silence carrying more weight than speeches. Aaron had been briefed by his commanders to keep his composure at all costs. One wrong step, one wrong word, and humanity's fragile peace with the Altherians could shatter like thin glass. He was confident until the moment came when his eyes, almost against his will, kept drifting to the princess's back. Something about the way the light struck the fabric of her robe caught his attention. It was subtle, so faint that anyone else might have missed it. But Aaron's soldier's eyes were trained to notice details. Beneath the flowing cloth, just between her shoulders, he saw it, a faint unevenness, a ripple against the smooth surface. It wasn't just part of the design. It was something hidden, something human eyes weren't supposed to notice. Selira, ever aware of her surroundings, turned her head slightly. At first she ignored it, but after the third time she felt his gaze, her composure broke. With a voice sharp enough to silence the entire court, she asked the question that no one expected. "Why do you keep staring at my back, human?" The chamber froze. Conversation stopped mid-word and the air grew heavy. Alien nobles leaned forward, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. This was it. The human envoy had insulted the princess. His fate was sealed. Aaron's pulse quickened, but he did not bow his head. Instead, he looked her in the eyes, steady and calm. He understood the weight of her words. To an Altherian, staring was a challenge, a question of honor. And to stare at the princess's back was even worse. It was a place of vulnerability, a hidden side no one dared disrespect. But Aaron wasn't staring out of arrogance or insult. He knew he had only one chance to explain. With a voice steady but quiet enough that everyone leaned closer, he said, "I wasn't staring, princess. I noticed something most would pretend not to see." Gasps rippled across the hall. The nobles exchanged sharp whispers, shocked that the human dared speak so plainly. Selira's eyes narrowed, her voice a mix of curiosity and steel. "And what is it you think you saw, Captain?" Aaron hesitated, measuring his words carefully. Then he spoke with honesty. "I saw scars." The hall erupted with disbelief. To speak of scars was to speak of weakness, and weakness was forbidden in the royal presence. Guards stiffened, ready to act at a single command. But Selira raised her hand, silencing them. Her eyes locked onto Aaron's. "Scars?" she repeated, her tone dangerous. "You claim to see what no one else dares to mention?" Aaron nodded. "Yes, they're faint, hidden under your royal markings. But they're there. And to me that isn't weakness. To me, scars are proof of survival." The chamber fell silent again, the kind of silence that stretched long and heavy. Even the air seemed to pause. The princess's expression softened just slightly, though her voice remained sharp. "And why, human, would survival matter to you so much?" Aaron took a slow breath. "Because my people carry scars everywhere, on our bodies and our history, even in the way we build our worlds. Every scar tells a story that we fought, we endured, and we lived to see another day. When I saw yours, I didn't see shame. I saw strength." A hush spread over the court. Nobles who had come expecting a human's humiliation now shifted uneasily in their seats. This was not the answer they had expected. It was bold, almost defiant, but it carried a strange weight. Princess Selira studied him for a long time. Her sharp eyes searched his face, looking for mockery or hidden insult, but she found none. What she saw was sincerity, an honesty that was rare in her world of polished masks and careful lies. At last, she turned her gaze away, though her voice carried across the chamber with clarity. "You speak boldly for one so young, human. Perhaps too boldly." Aaron did not flinch. "Perhaps, princess. But it is the truth." The chamber stirred with whispers again, but the princess lifted her hand once more, ending them. She said nothing further, simply turning her head back toward the throne. Yet those closest to her noticed something unusual. Her shoulders, always carried with perfect poise, seemed just slightly lighter. Aaron stood quietly, aware that he had just walked on the edge of disaster. But he also knew he had planted something, a seed of recognition. The princess now understood that at least one human saw her not as flawless royalty, but as a fellow survivor. For the first time since stepping aboard the Altherian flagship, Aaron allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Humanity had not come to bow, it had come to stand. The silence in the royal chamber lingered long after Captain Aaron Blake's words. Princess Selira had said nothing more, and the nobles were left whispering quietly among themselves. The human had spoken boldly, far bolder than anyone had expected, yet she had not punished him. That was unusual. The Altherians valued strength and discipline, but they also valued order. A lesser being should never have been allowed to speak so freely in the presence of the princess. But instead of dismissing him or commanding his removal, Selira simply ended the session early. With a single graceful wave of her hand, she rose from her throne and departed, her robe flowing behind her like liquid starlight. Aaron was escorted back to the guest chambers prepared for him. He had no idea whether his words had earned him respect or simply marked him for closer watch. Still, he felt calm. He hadn't spoken to insult her, he had spoken the truth. If that truth cost him his place as envoy, so be it. That night, as the flagship drifted in orbit, Aaron sat near the wide observation window of his chamber. The galaxy beyond was vast and beautiful, but it was also dangerous. He thought about what he had seen, the faint scars across the princess's back. Those marks told him something important. She wasn't untouchable. She had suffered. She had fought, and she had survived. His thoughts were interrupted when the door to his chamber slid open. Two guards stepped in, tall and silent, their faces hidden under silver masks. Behind them walked Princess Selira herself. Aaron rose immediately, unsure what to expect. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly. Selira raised her hand. "Do not bow, human. That is not why I am here." The guard stayed near the door as she stepped further inside. For a long moment she simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke. "You spoke of scars," she said. "Tell me, why do your people see them as symbols of strength? Among us they are flaws, marks to be hidden, not displayed." Aaron met her gaze, steady and calm. "Because they tell a story," he answered. "When someone survives a battle, an accident, or even a disease, the scar left behind proves that they endured something that could have destroyed them. It shows resilience. Humans respect that. We don't see scars as ugly. We see them as reminders that we kept going when it would have been easier to give up." Selira tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as though she were testing the weight of his words. "You speak as if every human has such marks." Aaron gave a faint smile. "In some way we all do. Some scars are on the skin, yes, but others are invisible, memories, pain, lessons learned. They shape who we are." The princess walked slowly toward the observation window, her long hair shimmering under the lights. "Strange," she murmured. "In my world, scars are seen as proof of failure. A warrior with scars is believed to have been careless, weak, or unworthy of honor." "Then your people misunderstand strength," Aaron said gently. Her eyes flashed at his boldness, but instead of anger, curiosity lingered in her gaze. "You dare to say so openly in my presence?" Aaron shrugged lightly. "If I don't speak honestly, then I waste both your time and mine. I don't believe strength is the absence of wounds. True strength is surviving them and still standing tall." For the first time, Selira's face softened. There was something almost thoughtful in her expression, as if she was weighing her own memories against his words. "Tell me of your people," she said after a pause. "You speak of scars and survival. What have humans endured that gives you such pride?" Aaron turned toward the galaxy beyond the glass. Our history is filled with struggle. We faced wars that nearly destroyed us, famines that starved millions, diseases that we had no cure for. Even our planet itself tested us with storms, quakes, and disasters. And yet every time we rebuilt, every time we found a way to keep moving forward. We carry scars, yes, but they remind us of what we've overcome. Celira listened quietly. The more he spoke, the more she felt something stir inside her. She had grown up in a palace of perfection, where flaws were hidden behind silk and ceremony. No one ever acknowledged her scars, not even her closest advisors. They pretended they didn't exist, as though pretending would erase them. But this human had not looked away. He had seen them and spoken of them with respect. She turned her gaze back to him. "So when you looked at me, you saw not weakness but strength?" Aaron nodded. "Exactly. I saw someone who has endured. That is worth respect." The princess studied him for a long time. The corners of her lips almost lifted, though not quite a smile. "Your words are dangerous, human. But they are different." The guards shifted uncomfortably, uncertain if this conversation was meant to continue. Yet Celira raised her hand, silencing them without even looking. Aaron decided to take a risk. "You asked me earlier why I kept staring," he said softly. "It's because your scars reminded me of my people, and maybe of myself too. I fought battles. I've lost friends. I carry scars of my own, some visible, some not. When I saw yours, I didn't see a princess above me. I saw someone who has also known pain and still chooses to lead." Celira's eyes flickered, a quiet storm of emotion hidden behind her regal composure. She said nothing at first, only turned back toward the stars. After a long silence, her voice returned, softer than before. "You may be reckless, human," she said, "but you speak truths others do not dare. I find that difficult to ignore." With that, she turned and walked back toward the door. The guards moved to follow, but before leaving, she glanced back over her shoulder. "Do not mistake this for acceptance," she warned, "but perhaps you will be summoned again." And then she was gone, leaving Aaron alone with the hum of the ship's engines and the quiet shimmer of distant stars. Aaron exhaled slowly, realizing how close he had come to disaster once more. But deep inside, he knew something had shifted. The princess had listened. She had not dismissed him outright. She had even asked questions. A seed of understanding had been planted, and in a galaxy filled with suspicion and distance, that seed could grow into something far greater. For the first time since arriving, Aaron felt that his mission was not just about treaties and politics. It was about showing the Altherians, and especially their princess, that humanity's true strength was not in technology or power, but in the simple truth of survival. The next day on the Altherian flagship began like any other. Nobles gathered for morning council, their tall figures moving gracefully under the shimmering lights of the throne chamber. Yet the air felt heavier than usual. Whispers ran through the court, rumors of the human envoy and the princess speaking privately. No one dared ask Celira directly, but curiosity burned in every eye. Why would the princess waste her time on a human? Why had she not punished his boldness? Some nobles believed the princess was testing him. Others feared that she had allowed the human's strange words to influence her. Captain Aaron Blake entered the chamber with calm steps, though inside he could feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken judgments. He knew every noble here was watching him, waiting for him to stumble. But he also knew something had changed. The princess had listened to him. That alone was a small victory. Celira arrived soon after, dressed in silver and blue robes that glittered faintly with the symbols of her lineage. She carried herself with her usual regal poise, but those who knew her best sensed something different in her gaze. It was sharper, more certain, as though she had made a decision during the long night. The council session began with reports of border conflicts and trade disputes, yet no one truly paid attention. All eyes kept sliding back toward Celira and the human standing near the edge of the chamber. Finally, one of the elder nobles broke the silence that had been building. "Your Highness," the elder said, bowing deeply, "it troubles us that you grant so much presence to this human. He speaks too freely. He stares where no one should. To honor him is to lower yourself." A murmur of agreement spread through the hall. Others added their voices, each more insistent than the last. They warned her that showing favor to the human would damage her authority. They reminded her that scars must never be spoken of, that weakness must never be revealed. Celera listened quietly, her eyes steady. When the voices grew too loud, she raised her hand and silence fell. She rose from her throne, her tall figure commanding the chamber. "You fear a human's words," she said calmly, "but perhaps you should ask why they trouble you so much." The nobles shifted uneasily, not daring to speak further. Celera's eyes turned toward Aaron, who stood waiting without fear. Then, with a decision that stunned everyone, she began to undo the clasps of her robe. Gasps filled the hall as the flowing fabric slid down from her shoulders, revealing her back. There, across her smooth skin, faint lines and ridges glimmered under the lights, the scars Aaron had seen. They were real, undeniable, impossible to ignore now. The chamber fell into complete silence. "Do you see them?" Celera's voice was steady, though her heart beat fast. "These scars have been with me since the war at Valor Ridge, a battle I survived when many of our warriors did not. For years my advisors told me to hide them, to cover them, to pretend they were not there. They told me they were flaws, shameful marks of failure." She turned slowly, her eyes sweeping over the shocked nobles. "But this human reminded me of something I had forgotten. Scars are not weakness. They are proof of endurance. They are proof that even in fire and pain I did not fall." The nobles could not believe what they were hearing. To reveal scars publicly was unheard of. Yet here was the princess, heir to the throne, standing unashamed before them all. Aaron's chest tightened as he watched. He had spoken truthfully, but he had never expected her to take such a bold step. And yet here she was, stronger than ever. Celera lifted her chin. "This human saw my scars and spoke of them with respect, not pity. He saw strength where we have been taught to see weakness. Perhaps we have been blind. Perhaps it is not the human who should be judged, but us, for hiding the very marks that prove survival." A hush followed her words. Some nobles looked away, unable to face her scars. Others stared in awe, realizing for the first time that their princess carried the marks of battle, just like the soldiers they honored in song. The elder noble who had spoken earlier trembled. "Your Highness, you cannot—" "I can," Celera cut him off firmly. "And I will, because I am not ashamed. These scars are mine, and they tell the truth of who I am." Aaron felt the weight of the moment. The princess had not only defended him, she had taken his words and made them her own. She had turned a simple truth into a declaration that shook the very foundation of her people's beliefs. The chamber remained silent until Celera spoke again, her voice ringing with authority. "Let it be known. From this day, scars shall not be hidden in shame. They shall be honored as signs of resilience. And if a human could remind me of this truth, then perhaps humanity deserves more respect than we have given them." Gasps turned into murmurs, murmurs into reluctant nods. The nobles could not deny the courage of their princess. Some still resisted, but many felt something shift within themselves. If their princess, flawless and untouchable, could stand proudly with scars, then perhaps they too could see scars differently. Celera turned back toward Aaron. For a moment her eyes softened, and in them, Aaron saw not just a princess but a survivor, someone who understood his people more than anyone else in the galaxy ever had. "You spoke boldly, human," she said, "and your words have changed more than you know." Aaron bowed his head slightly, not out of submission but out of respect. "I only spoke the truth, Your Highness." She allowed herself the faintest smile. Sometimes the truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. From that day forward, the relationship between humans and Altherians began to shift. The princess's public declaration spread across the empire, carried on voices and screens. Other alien leaders took notice. If humanity could teach the proud Altherians something new, perhaps humans were not as fragile as they had believed. Aaron remained aboard the flagship for weeks after, often summoned by the princess. Their conversations ranged from politics to history, from war to resilience. And each time Celera listened more closely, she began to see humanity not as reckless outsiders, but as equals in the struggle for survival. In the end, what began as a single question, "Why do you keep staring at my back, human?" turned into an answer that echoed across the stars, that scars are not flaws, but the banners of those who endure. And in that shared truth, two very different worlds found the beginnings of respect and perhaps something more.